Good morning, afternoon, and good evening to everyone who has joined us today. I am Praveen Jadhav and I'll be hosting this webinar. Welcome to our first webinar of 2023 as a part of Wipro's Reimagining R&D webinar series. Here we collaborate with experts and industry leaders to highlight crucial subjects for the pharmaceutical and biotech industry. Our objective really is to acquire and share knowledge that will enable all of us to reimagine R&D. And I cannot think of any other way to start off this year to talk about an approach that is potentially going to transform and is already transforming how we think about regulatory submissions. I'll introduce our guest today, Khushbu Sharma, in a minute. Before I begin with that, a few housekeeping notes here. Today's webinar is recorded. We invite your comments and questions, so you can locate the chat box most likely on the right side of your screen. If you are experiencing any technical issues, please reach out to holly@wipro.ai. And at the end of this webinar, we will have some announcements as well as we will appreciate your feedback, answering a brief poll at the end. Before again we get into the topic, I would like to point out an important event that is coming up in less than 10 days, equally exciting. So nothing to take away from this event, but we have an excellent conference and a workshop that we have arranged along with the University of Maryland, Baltimore. This is about setting R&D strategy, role of intelligence. And if you click the link here, you can see the agenda as well as a chance to register. The first registration coming out of this will get a free registration from as a compliment from Wipro. So go ahead with it. Before I introduce Khushbu, what I hope to do personally, and when I heard about Accumulus for the first time, I wanted to learn the impetus behind transforming how the drug innovators and health regulators interact. Global information exchange platform that Accumulus Synergy is developing, how those interactions will happen, and vision and role played by different stakeholders. How did this come about? This is a massive exercise, and I'm really looking forward to see how this how this came to life. And use cases for all of us. This is going to change how we think about it. So it will be good to know what are some first steps, what we should be looking for from this platform, and what role it will play in shaping the future regulatory strategy. So without further delay, let me introduce Khushbu Sharma. I would only say 4 words: Accumulus, Bio, FDA, J&J, I guess. That requires no more introduction, but allow me to have a little bit color to it. Khushbu is a Chief Regulatory Innovation Officer at Accumulus Synergy. Most recently, she served as a Chief of Staff and Senior Vice President at Bio. She oversaw the science and regulatory team that largely focus on major regulatory policy initiatives spanning from preclinical through market activities. Through her work at Bio, Khushbu was at forefront of identifying challenges and offering concrete solutions and suggestions to help build the appropriate regulatory framework. Khushbu joined Bio in 2021 after spending 11 years in various roles at FDA, including Deputy Director of Operations in the Office of New Drugs. She oversaw business, regulatory, and programmatic operations, supported regulatory reviews for the new drug regulatory program through the new drug modernization effort. She also served as an FDA negotiator during the PDUFA negotiation cycles. Khushbu was named one of InVivo's Rising 30 Leaders in 2021 in healthcare and science. Prior to joining the FDA, Khushbu worked as a scientist for 4 years at Janssen, where she managed oncology, therapeutic monoclonal antibody drug products, supporting development in phase 1, 2, and phase 3 clinical studies. She earned an undergraduate degree in biotechnology and microbiology and her master's degree in business administration in healthcare and biotechnology industry management from Penn State University. And she's 80 years old. I'm just joking. This will require me to uh, build 80 years. So Khushbu, thank you for agreeing to speak with us. I am thrilled that you agreed to speak with us, and with that, I will hand over to you. So welcome.
Great, thank you. I'm really excited to be part of the webinar series, and I'm glad that I'm the first one in 2023. So hopefully I'm setting the bar high for you, Praveen, for future
Absolutely.
webinars. um, but just a mini disclaimer that the views and opinions that I'm expressing today in my presentation and the conversation we have today are of Accumulus Synergy, and should not be attributed to any of our member companies or individuals or any of the health authority or any organization with which we're affiliated with. So with that, let me tell you a little about why we're doing this and the current industry landscape, which should not be something that's new to anyone that's on this webinar. But anyone that has worked in the biopharma industry understands the unique challenges that go into developing and delivering novel therapies to patients. It's challenging to constantly innovate, and some of these challenges are compounded by the amount of and the complexity of data that's required to gain approvals for a drug. Inefficiencies such as locked data sets, manual processes, event-driven interactions, which are still document-based in a PDF, are some areas that were considered when the scope for Cumulus was first being discussed. So if you think about this, I mean, we're not here to solve all issues of drug development life cycle right away, but let's focus in on the laborious and manual way of working that currently exists in the submission process. Let's pretend that you are a life science company, ABC. You just completed your clinical trials and are ready for regulatory approval in the United States. For a new drug application, you're looking at putting together a dossier of somewhere between 1 to 3 million pages of information. You could stack all of that paper and you could exceed the height of the Space Needle Tower, which is over 200 meters. Luckily for those of you that are in the United States, you can submit all of those pages digitally to the FDA in PDF format. But what about the rest of the world? Every governmental entity maintains decision-making autonomy over the product that can be marketed in the country. This means that the life science company ABC must file a unique dossier in 140 plus countries. Only 12 jurisdictions currently accept this content digitally, which means you're shipping enormous volumes of paper and other physical artifacts around the world to get approval. And we believe that this can be done differently. Praveen, I think you're on mute. I see you talking.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, actually, if you don't mind interruptions, if I can
Absolutely
be
not.
provocative, if I can be provocative for audience, and I'll invite audience also to ask any questions. Um, you've been with FDA Bio. This topic that we need to collaborate better between industry regulators, between regulators. I mean, it's not new. We have seen it. So why now? What is driving, and what's the why are we talking about it now?
No, absolutely. I think this has been an issue, ongoing issue, but in the last 3 years, the biopharmaceutical industry has faced challenges with the global pandemic and a lot of intense regulatory scrutiny, and also a lot of pressure to think through how you can accelerate the drug development for COVID-19. And while the pandemic catalyzed previously unimagined acceleration in the development of registration of vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics, it came with a tremendous cost to both regulators and resources to biopharma companies. And that cost is not sustainable anymore if you keep the business model as is. Drug development needs two fundamental shifts from organizational and regional silos to enhance global collaboration. We can't do rigid and sequential event-driven interaction anymore, and we really need to think about real-time communication, data exchange, and synchronized engagement. I think COVID really showed us it can be a reality, and I think it's going to be a real loss if we go back to the old way of working and not pick up on the momentum of what we really learned from COVID.
Interesting. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely true. Go ahead.
So very quickly, I'll share with you Accumulus's vision and mission and why we're here. So if you Accumulus is a global nonprofit that is developing a unique platform to enable collaboration and efficiencies in how biopharma companies and global health authorities interact. Our vision is to dramatically accelerate critical therapies to all citizens of the world. And the way we want to do this is we want to reimagine the interaction and the information exchange between stakeholders in the healthcare ecosystem to streamline the regulatory life cycle. We are currently, our stakeholders are 12, we have 12 sponsors from large biopharma companies, but we're constantly engaging with multiple health authorities to really understand how we can make our vision and mission a reality. So the current state of, as I mentioned, submissions is document-based. The content is shared in PDF format, that is unstructured data. The reviews are heavily narrative-driven, and it's very difficult to construct a regulatory history for a single product. And from a regulator's perspective, it's difficult for knowledge management and seeing trends across products. For biopharma companies, that same content is replicated and reformatted for different jurisdictions. And at times, the content exists in different systems across organizations. And that eventually leads to manual manipulation of content. And it's a very cumbersome process. So for the future state, we are thinking that the paradigm needs to shift to a more data-centric paradigm. The idea is to go from document-based paradigm to a data-centric paradigm. Submissions and assessments would have to evolve over years to a more dynamic interactions with data exchange instead of document exchange. Again, this will evolve over a multi-year time frame. Again, can't happen overnight, but we really need to start thinking about the foundational framework now to how to create that data-centric paradigm. So for our platform itself, we want the future of the industry that discovers treatments and improve healthcare for all to be vastly different place. As I mentioned, data centricity will be a primary focus of all development of the platform. We envision Accumulus as the central hub where different stakeholders, whether it's biopharma companies, regulators, or other healthcare stakeholders can interact. The Accumulus Cloud platform will sit at the center of the ecosystem, the new ecosystem. Each organization will have their own space, and the content will remain with the originating organization. So each company will have its own company-only space. Each health authority will have its own health authority space. And the magic happens here in the middle of the little cloud that we have here on the slide, where there will be a multi-tenant space with controlled access to allow for sharing of select data and information. This collaboration space and data exchange is going to be transformative and is what makes us unique. All biopharma companies, biotech, generics, medical device companies, anyone who's creating therapies that require regulatory approval will be able to use the platform when we have it available for commercial use. It's critical for Accumulus that the platform is available for all, regardless of organization size or type. And over time, the goal is that the platform can integrate directly with databases of our partners to create a pipeline of source data. This will hopefully eliminate much of the arduous paper, PDF work that currently exists. And the source connections will make it easier to refresh data quickly and securely, moving towards real-time collaboration instead of event-driven engagement. And having all of this data in one place will be really exciting for all of our ecosystem stakeholders. But with that said, we need to do something with the data. It can't just be a data lake or a data house. Accumulus is planning on building applications and tools to sit on top of the exchange and collaboration platform. Some examples would be developing business rules, analytical capabilities enabled by AI and machine learning as the technology matures. So we're hoping that Accumulus is more than just a data lake and a storage platform, but it's an environment that enables anyone to clean data, perform analytics, and communicate insights. And as I mentioned, COVID-19 showed us the potential for this collaboration and the impact of shared and efficient knowledge can have on the ecosystem. And we believe that this new paradigm can dramatically change and accelerate how critical therapies are made available to patients.
Kushbu, maybe this is a good point to take some questions. Very interesting, three interesting questions and have come in here. First one is, what are the 11 health authorities you're currently engaging with?
Sure. The health authorities that we're engaging with, and I will touch on it later as well. But currently, we are engaging with FDA, PMDA, EMHA, EMA, and MHRA, and Swissmedic. And we're also engaging with health authorities that are part of the Orbis pilot. So the Israel Ministry of Health, also with HSA, TGA, and Visa. So we have been engaging with all of these health authorities that have been involved with some of these pilots that we have ongoing.
And the second question, if you want to cover this later, I don't know if this gets to a little bit of how this pilot will start. The question is there a pilot submission type? Interesting question, I think. Typeset being considered for the first wave, or are we targeting all clinical CMC, the 200-meter wall or the tower, I guess? What's the thought process? And again, if it's up to you whether you want to tackle now or keep it later based on the slides.
Yeah, I mean, I can jump into quickly. I mean, we have to learn to walk before we run. We won't be able to target all modules and all clinical protocols or all submission types. But currently, we have two pilots ongoing with FDA. One is related to FDA's Project Orbis, which is a multiple health authorities review with a sponsor. And the other is we're starting to develop some business requirements on how labeling negotiations happen between health authorities, well, in this case, FDA and sponsors. So at this point, our two pilot use cases are with those two projects as we're trying to develop the capabilities. But the capabilities that we're developing, and maybe it's a good point for me to get to that since we're starting that topic, is submission
there's a quick follow-up, if you don't mind. There's a quick follow-up here saying, will this include diagnostic submissions as well? Is that drug biologic centric, or diagnostic devices will also be part of this?
Eventually, we would want to make this available to any sponsor that is developing therapies. So medical devices, generics, biosimilars, biotech, new drugs, biologics. So the goal is to cover any company or any pharmaceutical company that is developing a product or a therapy for patients. So long answer short, yes.
Good questions. Yeah, please continue. I'll keep monitoring the questions. Go ahead.
So the current capabilities that we're building are twofold. One is submission collaboration, and one is data exchange. And the long-term journey ties directly to these two core product lines of Accumulus. The submission collaboration is focused on developing a centralized collaboration platform that will allow several different types of biopharma companies and health authorities to engage. And as I mentioned, we have two pilots ongoing, one with FDA's Project Orbis, and the second with labeling negotiations with FDA. The second capability that we're building is related to data exchange, which is focused on developing an interoperable platform that takes heterogeneous industry data and leverages existing and future standards and data models to provide homogeneous, validated content to various health authorities. And right now we're working with FDA on the PQ-CMC aspect of the CMC data. So these are the two main capabilities that the platform is building, but our use cases initial focus is on these three pilots. With data exchange, as we at Accumulus call it data X, we're starting with CMC data, but that can then be scaled to other data types as well, and it's not just focused on CMC. So let me dive a little bit into each of these capabilities. So the submission collaboration capability and the platform will provide a host of features to improve collaborations with health authorities. Real-time status dashboards will display the the progress of all projects that have been shared. Cross-health authority commenting will allow health authorities to provide live feedback, which is far superior than the current process of providing feedback via email and then waiting for responses from a company, which gets submitted back in a static Word or a PDF document. Companies and health authorities will be able to communicate via this platform and make information requests when required, which will all be documented in a single location for any future historical analysis. And on top of all of these features, as I mentioned, automation via AI and machine learning algorithms will cut down on manual process, hopefully improving productivity and efficiencies for both parties that are involved. And going into our vision for data exchange, the capability will allow for storage of validated regulatory data in a common format, be able to map terminology across different jurisdictions, be able to construct templated filings from common data, be able to exchange structured filing with global regulators, and we'll also have the flexibility to import and export data through key integrations with other capabilities and other ecosystems. And as we continue to develop our vision of data-centric paradigm, the applicability, even though we're starting with CMC, can move towards clinical, preclinical, or even safety, any data type. So as part of the main, I think the long-term vision is data exchange. And the first offering for data exchange looks to provide value to both sides of the regulatory information exchange through a common data platform. And data exchange hopefully will promote an accelerated feedback loop. So it will be the first offering for data exchange to provide value for sponsors and regulators, as I mentioned, in the PQ-CMC space. So sponsors will have the ability to prepare their PQ-CMC submission data in the platform using step-by-step data uploads, data element mapping, and controlled terminology validation, hopefully to increase speed and reduce chances of error. And it is our hope that the platform may change how health authorities review this data without needing to first manually transcribe data into an agency's internal databases and review tools.
Well, maybe one question we can take here, and I think you alluded, but it's worth highlighting. And this is going to be, we know this question will, and I'm sure you have heard this being the most important question is who will actually host the data? Is there an institution? And who keeps the ownership, and how do companies make sure the ownership of our data? I'm sure you have heard this question, but I think it's worth re-highlighting the question goes on saying, how do you ensure digital security of these data?
Yeah, so we're making sure that anything that we develop is developed with the most advanced cloud security, privacy, and compliance capability. As I mentioned early in the cloud, that the originating organization owns the data. And our platform is going to allow for multiple agencies to collaborate together. So data security has to be paramount. We have at this point gathered over 1,500 security, privacy, and compliance requirements from several health authorities around the world, which is a first of its kind analysis. And we're designing the platform with the highest common denominator approach, meaning that the platform will abide by the strictest known requirements to avoid any conflicts among jurisdictions. The data will remain owned by those that create it. This will allow the life sciences companies and the health authorities to control who they release the data to. The default will be for the data to remain in the hands of the originating organization.
That's going to be very important. And actually, there is a follow up to the previous question. Let's probably cover that before we move forward. Um, will this include drug master files as well under this initiative? Is it
It could
all data?
eventually. It's any type of data. So we're not classifying it by submission type. It's any data. So if the data is submitted via a drug master file, then yes, if that's what a sponsor or a biopharma company wants to utilize the platform for, we will not restrict it.
Awesome. And I have a question of my own. So if you talked about the platform, if you were to say some unique aspects of the platform, what would those be? What are some
I would
uniqueness?
say,
Hmm?
I think the our secret sauce is the multi-tenant space, and I can go back for the individuals for this, where the secret sauce is in the middle with that controlled access and being able to allow to share the data and information. This is something that's unique, where it will be a cloud enabled platform, but there's that secured space where two organizations, whether it's health authority to health authority or a health authority to a sponsor, can come and collaborate in a shared space, in a multi-tenant space. This this is what's unique and makes us transformative, because I don't think this is anything that anybody has tried before.
Thanks. Yeah, continue.
Now I'm trying to remember where I was. All right, I think I remember where I was. Let me go
Sorry.
back. Oh no, this is good. I like interaction and going back and forth. Um, so of course, the time to digitize is not going to happen overnight. As I mentioned, we have to learn to walk before we can run. The goal is that over 18 months is to improve our collaboration space between sponsors and health authorities, and health authority to health authority. This will still happen in the existing document paradigm. But we're hoping that after that point, we can start delivering on that data exchange paradigm and that data X platform that I'm talking about to make sure that we are delivering structured content and digitization of existing documents. As I mentioned, I'll go back to it, that the Accumulus platform is being built with the most advanced cloud security technology. And as I mentioned, that security, privacy, and compliance are of paramount importance to us. And we are making sure that we are developing a platform that meets the requirements for the health authorities that we're interacting with. So we're designing the platform with the highest common denominator approach, meaning that the platform will abide by the strictest known requirements if there are any conflicts among different jurisdictions. And as I said, data will remain owned by those that create it, life sciences companies and health authorities, and they control who they release the data to. And eventually, our goal is democratization and engagement. Our goal is that we want to make sure that anyone who has access to the data can utilize it. We have engaged with several health authorities and trades in the last year, and our goal is to expand on this. Currently, we have the big pharma companies as our sponsors, but we're looking for a democratization strategy over the next few years to ensure that small biotechs, generics, medical devices, biosimilar industry, anyone that is looking to get a therapy approved or any underfunded regulators can utilize the platform as well. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions.
There are a lot of questions, so I'll try my best to string those together. The first question, and I'll paraphrase, and it's actually a question even I have, is in this question, a question that they're currently enabling a vendor solution, Viva, to enable and build, submit health authority submissions.
Mhm.
Um, is there a thought process to connect with Viva or other vendors to come up with a strategy to how to enable this? Because personally, also, I mean, we are also a company in this space that provide
Mhm.
software intelligence. And what excites me is the wealth of data that will be available in one place. So, can you speak of about a potential ecosystem that needs to come up in this journey? AI, ML, visualization, security, and how does maybe Accumulus plan to achieve that? Are you going to do it yourself, partner? What's the grand plan?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think for this sort of transformative change to happen, the ecosystem would need to come together and continue on this journey. I don't think Accumulus can do it all by ourselves. Once we have structured data, putting in analytics is the appropriate next step. Viva is already in the document management space. But in some instances, we absolutely need to partner and engage with others that are in the ecosystem. And in some ways, we might do our own DIY building of the platform, but we're still in the stages of figuring out where we're partnering and where we will build it ourselves. But again, as I said, the ecosystem would need to come together on this journey, and absolutely, we would need to integrate and engage with all of those stakeholders to make sure that the vision is still moving forward in the same pathway and the same trajectory.
Nice. There were two connected questions. I think they make sense in that order. The first question here is, you showed us 12 major pharma companies have signed up as sponsors. By no means it's an easy feat. So can you talk about the process and timeline to get here? Was it a walk in the park? How was the experience?
I would say, I guess nothing is a walk in the park. But about, I would say, I would say a little over 3 years ago, at a gathering of the heads of R&D forum of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, discussions centered around great technological advancements that are driving efficiency and productivity in clinical research. And health authorities that were in attendance at that meeting challenged the R&D group to join the 21st century when it comes to reimagining data exchange throughout industry. And that's where the concept of Accumulus was born. And for the first time, we're working to create that new data and hoping that a dozen global pharmaceutical companies right now that are providing us the financial capital to get this nonprofit effort off the ground can then expand and really truly live up to the vision of what the conversation happened at that meeting.
An interesting follow-up from a different audience here is, okay, you got them in. What level of change management will be required for this? And does Accumulus plan to support this anyway?
I mean, nothing changing the how regulatory process and regulatory submissions are dealt. I mean, you can develop the IT platform. That's the easy part. It's the change management that's challenging. You've been inside a federal agency, Praveen, so have I, and changing regulatory processes is not easy. People like doing things their own way, and change management is difficult. Rate of adoption is difficult. Because especially for health authorities that already have infrastructure in place, it's really hard to change that infrastructure. It takes time. But I think there has to be someone that needs to deal with this. And as I mentioned, COVID showed us that we can do this. I don't think the complexity of the regulatory environment, the complexity in how data is generated for evidence generation, nobody is thinking about two randomized controlled trials anymore in big trials. You're looking at ultra rare diseases, orphan diseases, real world evidence, utilization of digital health technologies. I mean, if the science is changing, you have to think about ways that technology needs to keep up with that science. I mean, currently, think about continuous data monitoring with a digital health technology or with your Apple Watch. How would you even submit that data to a health authority to review and analyze it? So, if we don't think about that data centric paradigm, uh, we won't be able to make progress in science. So, I think a lot of industry and also health authorities have that same vision. I think they know that this is needed. It's just the slow progress of actually making this to a reality. And I'm hoping the more and more industry comes together along this journey and the ecosystem is moving together, we can make that change.
It's absolutely true. I mean, health authorities as well as on industry side, there is one group that has already always done this way, and as you said, then there are these newer forces come in. It's an interesting, um, I would call an atmosphere building, and yeah, absolutely a bold initiative is needed. Next three questions are quite related, so I'll take in that order. So uh, first is, have you engaged at all with China's CDE?
We have
China.
not yet. We have not yet and engaged with China CDE. It is as part of our overall regulatory engagement as we are trying to go towards democratization. Eventually, yes, but not at this point. Right now, we are trying to influence some of the global influence health authorities that are a bit more advanced in their infrastructure. But eventually, the goal is for democratization and hitting those other health authorities as well. So eventually, that is the plan.
Eventually. Follow on to that, again, different audience. How about ICH? Is ICH part of this? That's also eventually.
ICH, I mean, we don't see ICH as an adopter where they will actually put the
Okay.
platform into their environment, but they're absolutely an influencer with health authorities, and we would absolutely need to partner and engage with them and think through efforts that ICH is considering and bring them along with the journey as well. So they're absolutely a partner that we're considering.
Yep. And another follow up to that is, as I think you also mentioned during the presentation, there are only few health authorities who accept fully digital submission. How do you plan to engage with the 193 UN members, so that it truly serves the global vision of this? Interesting.
Like I said, we have to walk before we run, and as we're still in our infancy. We're still understanding the pain points and the requirements of the countries that are digitized. And as we start interacting with some of our influencers or our partners like ICH or engaging with other health authorities, we'll continue to understand their pain points, their needs, so that we can make sure that we are developing a platform and building the capabilities that meet their requirement. So I would say it's too soon for me to answer that question because we're still figuring out what their requirements are. But hopefully one day I can come back and tell you the answer and how we're planning on engaging.
Very good. The next question is about timing. So, if we were to pick, I mean, in my opinion, if you look at the use cases for this platform, it's almost a no-brainer that
Mhm,
industry needs such a platform. The If you pick, let's say, one, digitizing labeling negotiation, the amount of time, I have been on both sides of the aisle, in terms of amount of time that goes emailing the document back and forth, and
mhm.
potentially which version are we talking about, is a common question, and it will save enormous time, and then multiply that with several regions. So the question
Mhm.
here is, if when do you plan to go live? What's the time frame? I mean, where are we on that time cycle? Where are we?
Sure. So currently, we're planning on rolling out our pilot projects this year in 2023. And our hope is that the platform will be broadly available in sometime in 2024. So hopefully not too far away.
Not too far away. That's good to hear. Um, and if again, I'll probably add some prelude to this question. uh, and I'll go back to the 200-meter paper wall. Some of us have actually seen it, or trucks that people have seen backing into White Oak. And so the question here is, there are so many innovation challenges on this. I think the question previously was also change management.
Mhm.
If there's one challenge you would specifically like to highlight for all of us, what would that be?
Sure. I think that's a good question, and I would say the biggest one is that the regulatory submission challenges are met with the promise of optimization. And if we turn our focus away from the manual and labor-intensive process of today and really think about a solution that's brought forth by structured content and data management, I think that's the key. The regulatory data currently exists, as I said, in a variety of formats and systems within and across the industry that we summarize as a document paradigm. As we know, with health authorities, or at least Praveen, you and I at FDA, the systems didn't talk to each other at all. But for biopharma companies, a lot of times these systems don't talk to each other as well. And hence the whole idea of document paradigm and recreating the same narrative, the same visuals, the same information. And I think the key is the biggest challenge is that we have to get over that hump, that there is a new space of digitization, and that we need to find a solution that is driven by structured content and data management. I think couple that with data aggregation and process automation and content authoring tools can really help make sure that there's immediate access to usable, traceable data, improve time to market for new drugs and therapies, and really reusable that single source of truth. And as I said, the challenge is the rate of adoption and that change management. I think people are content in the way things are going. But I don't think, as I said, given the science, you can continue to engage in that space.
And the question right on the follow up on that. So, what about challenges of data sets? As you know, the volume of data set is a burden on industry with terabytes of size of ECTD. So, rather than a 200-meter wall, we are talking about transforming terabytes. What's your view on that? Perfect timing for the
Well,
question, by the way. I kind
well,
of
I,
skipped the other question and put it forward.
well, I think first, having a cloud modernized platform can at least be able to submit the data in terabyte format. But I think we really need to, and Accumulus cannot do this alone. We can't change the regulatory process. All we could do is bring the ecosystem together for health authorities to think through how to change that regulatory process. There would need to be policy conversations. There needs to be a shift in policy framework to be able to make some of those changes into the ECTD format. And like I said, this is a journey that I think everyone who's involved in this industry needs to go along this journey together, because Accumulus alone, we can't solve all of the drug development review issues alone, but everyone in the ecosystem would have to work together and agree that this is a change that is needed, and think through what policy framework that's needed, what are the regulatory processes changes that's needed. Industry can't do it alone, and health authorities can't do it alone. So good question, and I think one of the reasons why I'm here is to make that case that as industry we need to change.
No, absolutely. I think I said multiple times, status quo is no longer possible, and that may be one of the biggest thing that needs to change in terms of really people's way of doing certain things, certain ways, and also the infrastructure needed for that. Um, Interesting question here. I'm a small pharma biotech company. Looks like all of the members are big pharma. Can I participate? And what is the benefit for me?
Sure. So once the platform is available, yes, there would be an opportunity. We're considering a subscription model for companies that would like to utilize the platform, and we would not like for cost to be a barrier of adoption. Our goal is democratization and ensuring that anyone who wishes to have access to the platform will have access. And that is why we're a nonprofit. And our revenue generation goals are aligned with our organization's mission and vision to accelerate the availability, to bring safe and effective therapies and medicines to patients. So we're developing models that support our ability to build a state-of-the-art secure platform. We want to make sure that we continue to reinvest and innovate and be financially sustainable while simultaneously offering a platform that can be utilized by anyone. So Accumulus is committing to accommodating individualized pricing that's needed to enable unrestricted access and usage for the platform.
Okay. So the audience member
The question
can
is, we'll
play.
work with you. Feel free to reach out
We'll
and we'll work with you.
please reach out to Kushbu. Actually, this question is very interesting. And this is again, as a software company, I really pay attention to is the user experience. So the question goes, your comment about narrative in my mind speaks to health authority wanting a specific and a repeatable user experience. And I mean, we know the reviewer life, right? I mean, things move fast. So will the application you're building allow for that? And are we looking to standardize that too?
Eventually, we're hoping, yes, as we build to develop those capabilities and hear from various health authorities and also hear from our biopharma companies what they would want that user experience to be. And as we continue to build those business requirements, absolutely, that's something that we will look into as well.
I mean, I think I was thinking many other challenges. I would say this would be one challenge because you can build a platform, you can't make them use it. I absolutely, and we have learned that, in our lifetime here
Yeah.
at Wipro. So very
I mean,
interesting question there.
and it's change management, right? We can build a perfect platform. We can provide training. We can onboard anyone to utilize the platform. But like I said, it's a process change. It's that mind shift change that they want to make their process better, and they can go in and use the platform. I think any IT initiative, I think 20% or 30% is actually building the platform. It's 80 or 70% is that change management and the rate of adoption that's needed to develop that change. And I think a lot of implementations fail during that change management. We're hoping that again, I said, and I'll keep on beating this. Hopefully, I'm a broken record by the end of this webinar that we bring the ecosystem together to bring that change forward.
Yeah. This question goes to the previous comment about incremental step, as you said, walk before we run kind of approach. And the question is, in this journey to data submission, and there are existing processes, and I did not know. I was actually trying to Google. It looks like there is ECTD is going to 4.0 and perhaps even 5.0. Looks like based on this question. So how do you kind of see ECTD playing out sort of a role along with you, or is it a replacement? I think that's kind of where the question is going. Like, how do you see ECTD 4.0 and future 5.0 within the Accumulus platform?
I mean, I think what ECTD is doing is 4.1 and 5.0 is very different than Accumulus. It's still a document submission tool, right? It's a mailbox or a way to submit information. As I mentioned, our secret sauce is not just document status submission. It's that multi-tenant space where collaboration and interaction can happen between health authorities and sponsors. And right now it's in the form of document paradigm, but we want that paradigm to shift and that collaboration to shift in data exchange. So I think our vision and our mission and our platform is different than what ECTD is doing. So I can't sit here and tell you that, yes, ECTD will be replaced. I think it's a very different use of those platforms.
Yeah. And I think the next question goes to similar, that may be a different stakeholder here. Who will be responsible for data collection template to meet the current guideline? Is it agency? Is it sponsor? Is it Accumulus? Uh,
I think it's for the templates. I think it's a collaboration between. We need to hear what templates industry wants. We need to hear what templates health authorities want, and then think of it as the middleman broker to help facilitate that. Because the requirements are going to be different from what health authorities want versus what sponsors are looking for.
Very good. Um, I think I'll ask you a last question, and before a few announcements and closing. Um, so, Khushbu, this was excellent. Actually, question just came, so maybe I'll take this question. Related to the question on ECTD, are you involved in the current ICH M4Q revision? This would be a great opportunity to reflect Accumulus idea into ICH guideline as soon as now.
Uh, Accumulus is not directly involved with MQ, but a lot of our sponsors who we work with, the big pharma companies have representatives where they are making sure that any changes can help with the paradigm shift of data centric. So directly, no, we're not working with ICH, but the industry that we're working with and the sponsors are very much so helping us advocate and make sure that this transformative approach is moving forward.
Perfect. I was just typing here. Great interactions, everyone. Thank you. Any last call for the questions? Of course, there is. Most of the health authorities in the world currently are not requesting data set submissions. So it needs to propose more than just a data exchange. I guess that was probably a comment, not a question, I guess.
No,
I'm guessing.
you're absolutely right, and we're hoping that the ones that are not asking for data sets is because they don't have the resource to analyze data sets. But
Mhm.
if the process to analyze data and review data is more efficient, we're hoping we can change that paradigm. And again, as I said, we have to learn to walk before we run and really understand those countries and those organizations who are still in the paper-centric, document-centric paradigm to really understand what their pain points are, to help build the capabilities that would make their process more efficient. So that's a great
Perfect.
comment, and yes.
And let me ask you my final question that I ask all of our guests. So for 2023, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I'll give you a professional and a personal. I'm hoping getting back into traveling in 2023. I love to travel. I think it's been a while since I've traveled internationally, as everyone, due to COVID, and the world is opening up again. Hopefully, it keeps on opening in 2023 so I can go back to traveling. So that's my one personal thing I'm looking forward to. But professionally, I would say I'm looking forward to continue to innovate in this area. I think we've been focused on innovation in science for drug development and for evidence generation. And I think it's time to focus on technology, and I think we need to bring the submission process into the 21st century. So innovation is something that I'm very much looking forward to in 2020.
Good. On the personal side, you said professional and
Tra-
personal, or innovation is
Personal
on the personal.
travel, travel,
Travel. Oh, I see.
travel,
That's for travel. Okay, so that's for both for business. I love that.
and
In
for
fact,
personal.
yeah, in fact, it's funny you say that. So I didn't say, but I am in Copenhagen right now. In 3 years, this is first business travel. Yeah, this was amazing, amazing to get out and spend some time. So I agree with that, and um, I'll close with my remarks, but I think I'll start off with one of the comments that just came, and I absolutely love that comment. The comment says, "I think the paradigm shift is from push from industry and pull or kind of advocacy of and information from data and by regulators. So it's a push and pull is going to take." And that's when I heard about this platform for the first time, I had to ask you, like, can you come and talk to us? So I appreciate you and your team really agreeing to this. I know that a lot of time goes into preparing for this. So on behalf of everyone on this call as well as Wipro, I appreciate it. And thank you for joining us. I'll make some final announcements, and I said, please answer the poll. But Kushbu, I'll give you a last word on this.
No, thank you so much for inviting me, Praveen. We were both at FDA around the same time, and I'm surprised we didn't really cross paths, but I'm so glad we met at a RAPS meeting and were able to do this webinar. And I hope we continue to interact, and I really hope that we bring the industry along. on this journey. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. So, last few announcements before I let all of you go. As I mentioned at the top of the call, we have another exciting event coming on January 23rd, 24th. You can look at the event agenda here as well as register. And as I mentioned, the first registrant is on the house here. So, feel free to join us if you are available, or if you can recommend to your friends. Please also help us answer a poll here that really allows us to understand your views of this webinar. So that poll should be appearing right now on your screen. And our February speaker is still getting finalized, but I am looking forward to talking to an industry leader who also was at FDA. For some reason, our first sets are going to be a lot of ex-FDAers that thinking about innovative regulatory pathways, accelerated approvals, breakthrough, and things like that. So if you sign up for this or follow us on LinkedIn, you will see these announcements. Again, with that, Khushbu, I appreciate your time, your team's time, and everyone who was engaged here. This was fabulous. As I said, and I'll repeat, I couldn't think of any better way to start off this year. Good luck to Accumulus.
Thank you so much.
I am looking forward to it, and I'm rooting for you guys.
Thank you so much, and travel safely back home.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Bye.